Thank you very much, and I feel that I can just say ditto to just about everything that's been said here. So I don't want to go into a lot of that about Brendan. If those of you who have seen the documentary, you sort of get a sense of it. And I hope I don't start blubbering too much when I start telling you stories, but I have no Kleenex. So I was writing this in the last couple of days and thinking, what do I want to say to people who, you know, a lot of you have already experienced a lot of the same things that I have, and I don't know if I can say anything new, but what came to my mind initially was just what we want for our children is just what every other parent wants for their children. We want them to have a good life. We want them to be happy. So we're the same as any other parents. And the idea that we are all in this together, and it's not just us as parents, it's not just our families, it's everybody. And I remember it's been said that a society is judged on how it treats its most vulnerable citizens, those with disabilities, the elders, people with mental illness. How will this time be remembered 100 years from now? I want to just say a little bit about some of the advocacy that I've been involved in through necessity, and of course we as parents are dragged into this, whether we want to do it or not. And the first thing in my realization of how we needed to be advocates was when Brendan was about 4. He was in a daycare center and he got expelled at 4 years old for seemingly pulling somebody's hair, and I forget now whether it was another child or one of the child care workers. But we didn't like that, and we fought it. We took it to the board of directors, and actually, as we kind of dug into that, it seems that there was another parent who had a little more money and power than we did, had said to the director that if you don't get rid of this child, and she was afraid that he was going to hurt her child, who happened to be on another floor anyway, that she was going to take her children out of this daycare. She was paying full fee for her 2 children. We were on a subsidized fee. So that was my first experience of power and money, which is at the bottom of, I think, a lot of the issues that we're talking about today. Now later, advocacy continued, of course, as he went into the elementary school, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with that, having to always explain what's really going on, and anyway, you'd think sometimes the teachers hadn't heard of inclusion or anything like that. But anyway, one of the things that we did when my son was in about grade 3 or 4, we realized that we'd been part of a parent support group, and of course we sit around and we're complaining about everything, and finally we got tired and say, okay, well, what are we going to do? So one of the things that I did was to start searching for alternate programs. I wasn't necessarily thinking of taking him out of school, but just different approaches to teaching children who have disabilities, who learn differently. And to make a long story short, after a lot of research, I came to the understanding that teaching through the arts could be the answer, or at least an answer. And arts is in my background as well as in my husband's. And in March of 2000, I set up the first creative arts program for children with special needs. And the program included storytelling, drama, music, movement, and visual arts. So we met once a week for 8 weeks, and out of that grew the Alexander Society for Special Needs. Parents saw that this is something that they really need. They saw their kids doing wonderful things. Then when those children reached adulthood, we started a teen program. And now, many of those original participants are still with us in the creative arts program for adults. A couple of years ago, we changed the name to the Alexander Society for Inclusive Arts. And we just see the need now to focus more on inclusion. So we continue to do the programs. You can check it out on alexandersociety.org to see what we're doing, and we do workshops. We've done this in schools, et cetera, and it continues. So I had made my notes, and now I've changed around all the paragraphs, so I've got to see where I want to go next. Well, now, Brendan, for the last 9 years since he left school, has been involved with the organization in Canning called Capri, and that stands for the Community Association of People for Real Enterprise. There it is. Yeah, so about 6 months ago, Capri has gone through a big upheaval. And the executive director resigned, and not long after, Brendan's one-on-one support worker resigned. Now, Capri supports individuals like my son to have their own enterprises. And that works only if there's one-on-one support. And it works quite well. My son has a business called Mr. B's Bakery. But when he lost his one-on-one support worker, he couldn't do that anymore. So the good news is that we just recently hired a new executive director, but we still don't have a one-on-one support worker for Brendan. There are other, like in the last couple of years, there have been like 9 participants who are part of Capri. And so now he's home full-time, and so that just changed our lives. And that's where the vulnerability comes in, that, you know, this can change any moment. Like at one point, you know, everything was going fine. He's happy with his job, he goes to work every day, he's out for 6 hours a day, so we can do our lives. But as soon as he's home again, you know, overnight, then that changes everything. So it's all so precarious. And another important point, and I know you all know this, about 20 years ago, Capri was started by several parents in Canning, and it was started because their children were too severely challenged to go to the regular workshops, because usually the sheltered workshops require an individual to be able to work somewhat independently. But they couldn't do that. So they came up with this wonderful idea of supported enterprise. And so it's been going for 20 years. But that brings out the point that I wanted to make, that almost every service that's available to our kids was started by parents. Maybe not all of them, but everyone. And then the parents end up being on the boards of directors. Sometimes they end up being the executive director, but it still continues. So, and that brings me to, yeah. I was thinking, so once he goes back to work, do I get a break? I thought, no. Still have, where's he gonna live when he leaves our home? And of course, this is the big thing. Once he gets back to work, then we've got to start working on this again. And we know all the issues that are around that right now. Where is he going to live? And of course, his choice would be to always live with mom and dad, right? That's not gonna happen. He doesn't understand, of course, and so we have to make the choice for him. And in my mind, right now, the choice in the valley would be the L'Arche community. It is a community. But like everything else, you know, there's a long, long waiting list. So is there really a choice? So if something happened, and one of you mentioned this as well, if something happened to me or my husband tomorrow, where would he go? He'd probably end up at the rehab center in Waterville. That's not a choice. It would be extremely traumatizing for him. I can just see the downward spiral. Anyway, the lack of choice is just so powerful, and it always makes me think of this. There's the response attributed to Henry Ford, the first maker of turning cars out, by the hundreds. When he was asked about the color choices of a new car, he said, "You can have any color you want as long as it's black." That's what we're up against. So, and then I realized, thinking of choices, the roadmap that was put out like in 2013, wasn't it called Choice, Equality, and Good Lives in Inclusive Communities?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, need I say more? We all need some choice. The kids also deserve the right to have some transition time. So when I know that what happens in the group home situation, a bed comes up, not a living situation, a bed comes up and you have to move there within days. And I think that is just so cruel to make a person do that. Like, they need transition time where they can try out a place, they can be there for a couple of days, they can come home, they need to get used to the idea. And this is one of the things, this is the big thing that I want, is for him, and I think we all want this, is for him to be able to live in a house that he begins to feel like is his home while we're still alive. So that he can start to see, this is mom and dad's home, this is my home. So that when we're gone, it's not a huge shock. So that's, I think, what we need to advocate for. And the parents, we need time. Do we need to say, that's it? And some of you have, and some people have to do that. Say, I can't do this anymore. But what's picking you up? What's supporting you when that happens? You don't have a lot of choice. I think the government should make a proclamation that at least by the time a parent is 70, their adult children will be settled in a suitable residence. For some, 70 is too old. It might be 60. But the government doesn't look at that. They do not look at the age of parents in all of this. And I've heard bureaucrats say, oh, they want to keep their child at home, they won't let them go. Well, why don't they let them go? There's no place to go. Anyway, we still have a lot of work to do. So I think one of the things that we have to do, and it's taking me back to my first experience as an advocate at the daycare center, when you are given an answer and you start to look deeper and deeper and deeper, and somebody in the bureaucracy gives you an answer and you don't like it, you have to ask, where is that answer coming from? Who's really making that decision? Not this person, not this bureaucrat is not making that decision. It is somewhere deeper in the bureaucracy and in the government that these decisions are being made. So we always have to try to drill down further and further until we get the answer that we need and keep on top of it. So we still have a lot of work, can't retire yet. And I think that the government needs to work with, I really, and some of you expressed this too, I don't have really much confidence in our government right now to put in place what needs to be put in place, and we have ideas. And I think instead of the government putting up roadblocks to people who do have ideas and are working on things, they should They should help them. They should say, how can I help you facilitate that? And say, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I think we have to remember that government, well, the MLAs anyway, are the people who are in government, are there for us, in a sense. Remember that they're working for us. We put them there, we hired them to do a job. And right now, I don't think any of us think they're doing a very good job. They don't have a vision. I think that's one of the issues, they don't have a vision. Imagine people being supported to live in community and have some choice, at least, as to what they do with their time. Right now, there are many people who have no choice. So we still have a long fight ahead to get what we all want for our children.